And still in India, New Delhi residents are struggling with breathing problems as high pollution levels continue in the Indian capital. The city of 20 million was the world's most polluted capital for the third straight year in 2020. According to IQAir, a Swiss group, the air quality in Delhi has hit hazardous levels. The local government has launched a series of measures such as shutting 5 power stations, extending school closures and appealing to vehicles to switch off their engines at traffic stops in a bid to contain the crisis. On most days, the air quality index has stayed above 451 on a scale of 500. The Federal Pollution Control Board's guidance said that these levels indicate very poor and severe conditions that affect even healthy people and seriously impact those with existing diseases. Anumita Roychowdhury of the New Delhi-based Centre for Science and Environment believes that the emergency measures announced by the Delhi government cannot solve the problem of air pollution in the city in the long term. I spoke to her earlier via Zoom from New Delhi.
For the last 10 days, in fact, since 4th of November, Delhi has been experiencing a very severe smog episode. Almost consistently since then, the air quality in the city and the surrounding region has remained elevated at what our national air quality index is showing is a severe level. So clearly what you can see, I mean, if you come here right now, you will see that how gray and smoggy the whole environment is. But this is also the time of the year, this is the winter, and we have this special problem during winter, mainly because around this time, there is an atmospheric change in the city. When there's a cool, calm winter condition, the wind nearly stops and it absolutely traps pollution. And that's why we see this sudden spiral of pollution. And given the fact that the pollution levels are already very high in this region.
But it seems as if they're at really high levels this time around. If it's something that happens over decades, what's different about this year and recent years? Is it climate change? What else is going on?
So what you need to understand that the pollution problem that you're hearing right now in Delhi, it's not the same throughout the year. This kind of buildup happens only around this time of winter, as I explained to you, that because of the whole trapping of the pollution. Now, the reason is that, this is also an expanding city, it's developing right now. And so with all the industrial activity, vehicle numbers increasing, just imagine the city of Delhi right now has about 13 million vehicles just in one city. And so all these pollution sources and the construction activities, so we have to manage our development very well. So climate change has some connection in another way, that if you have more warming, then in the air, the gases that we have can also form particles and contribute to the local pollution load. So there is some linkage. But at the same time, as like Africa, India is also growing now. We are growing economically. So many economic activities are expanding now in the city and the surrounding areas. So all of that is contributing hugely. So which essentially means that we now have to take very stringent measure. That's where the challenge is for us. But what is also that you need to keep in mind is that on a year-on-year basis for over the last decade, overall pollution levels are actually declining in the city. But even after that decline, where the levels are today, we have to reduce those levels by yet another 58% to meet the clean air standards. So that's why during winter, when weather turns adverse, the pollution builds up very rapidly.
So you're saying that over time, the pollution has been actually decreasing. What has led to that? What kind of interventions?
So that's very interesting. In fact, there's a huge learning curve that we have in Delhi that other cities of India and even Africa need to understand. So imagine Delhi, despite all the problem, this is one city in the country that has shut down all coal power plants. So not a single coal power plant exists in Delhi anymore. Most of our industry inside the city have moved to natural gas. Our entire public transport and local commercial transport also run on natural gas. We have phased out old vehicles, 10-year-old diesel vehicles and 15-year-old gasoline vehicles are not allowed in the city. There is a restriction on the trucks that can enter the city. Right? So like this, all this action have been taken, and we have also taken the clean fuel policy that in Delhi today you cannot burn coal or any other dirty fuel. So all of these have contributed to that decline. But there are still gaps in action, and that shows the challenge of pollution control. So we still have to do a lot more to scale up our public transport system so that the vehicle numbers can reduce and also restrain personal vehicle usage. We still need to improve our municipal system so that construction dust and the waste burning can be controlled. And even now, the whatever dirty fuels that are still being used in industry, that will have to be completely stopped. So therefore, understand today whether the cities in Africa or cities in India, that once pollution begins to grow with economic development, how aggressive and stringent action we need to take. That's why when we are growing, we have to ensure that we do the right thing and not allow the polluting activities to increase.
Despite the court's instructions, authorities are saying that part of the problem is that neighboring states are not doing their bit. And unless they do their bit, it's very difficult for Delhi to manage the pollution problem. Is that a fair assessment?
I would say yes, for a very simple reason, that if we all understand the atmospheric science, then pollution does not remain confined within the administrative boundary of a city. Pollution blows with the wind. Now, therefore, while cities need to deepen their action and do take more aggressive action to control local pollution, but simultaneously, you also require a regional approach. So, right now, if you take a satellite view of India, you will find that the kind of smog that we have in Delhi right now, it is just not only in Delhi. It is across the region, entire northern India, Indo-Gangetic plain, that this kind of smog has built up. Delhi is the capital of the country, so it's drawing so much of attention. Now, therefore, when so much of smog buildup happens at the regional level, we need to take action across the region. That's the global learning that we have to keep in mind.
Another contributing factor, I believe, is farming practice. We hear about stubble burning. Tell us what that is and how it's contributing to the pollution.
This is a very challenging problem for us. But this does not happen throughout the year. It happens only around this time when farmers are changing their crop. So what they do when they have cut their earlier crop, the stubble residue that remains from that earlier crop, to clear the field, they just burn that straw because they also have a very short window to sow the next crop. So the easiest thing to do is to just burn it. Now, government has come up with a lot of strategies. So they are now thinking of giving subsidy to the farmer to have these machines which can help them to mix the straw with the soil and mulch it so that they don't have to burn it. Also, we are setting up power plants and bio-CNG plants which can take the straw and generate power and make bio-CNG from the straw. So all these solutions are available today, but only challenge is to scale up the solution so that you can reach millions of farmers in the region. That's where the trouble is right now. So we know the solution. So that's a reason why around this time of the year, everything kind of comes together. The winter, atmospheric changes, high local pollution, and then the smoke from the stubble burning also coming. And its contribution to Delhi's pollution depends on the direction and the speed of the wind. So if the wind is in the direction of Delhi, then all that smoke then blows into Delhi. So it certainly requires a very strategic action.
What are some of the health consequences that you've been seeing as a result of these elevated levels of air pollution?
Around this time, if you talk to any doctor in Delhi, they will tell you that how tough it is, that they are seeing the sudden spurt in symptoms and also emergency hospital admission related to respiratory conditions, heart conditions. So there is a immediate trigger effect, and especially children, elderly, and those who already have respiratory conditions like asthma, etc., they are more vulnerable. So that's why we are so much worried, and as you know, that during this smog episode, government has taken the decision to shut down the schools for a week so that children are not exposed to this toxic air. Now, this is the short-term impact. But if air quality and air pollution remains elevated throughout the year, just not in Delhi, but across the country, then of course the overall impact in terms of number of people dying and falling ill because of air pollution related diseases, I mean, that's also very high in India. About 650,000 people die prematurely every year in India because of air pollution related diseases. There are studies today to show that children growing up in polluted environment, they grow up with smaller lungs. So, and even in Delhi, there is a data to show that every third child has impaired lung. So you can imagine that what is the health consequence of air pollution, something that entire developing country needs to understand and take note of.
When I look back, what do they call it? The Environment Pollution Prevention and Control Authority, the EPCA, was set up as far back as 1998, recognizing this enormous problem. 2019, the EPCA said that declared air pollution a public health emergency. Do you think that the authorities are doing enough and doing enough quickly enough to deal with this problem?
So that is the challenge, Peter. So everything that I have actually just given you a list of what has already happened in Delhi, that actually happened because of the Supreme Court of India and EPCA, which was monitoring the implementation of the direction from the Supreme Court of India. So that has actually helped us a lot to push the executive action. And then the government has also taken the action to do a lot of it. But as I said, but there are still challenges. And so we have to find a way. So while we have seen some success, as I said, I mean, it is not a small thing for a city to shut down all coal power plants, put entire public transport on natural gas. So for all of that, right kind of infrastructure and the funding was mobilized. But now for the next generation of action, we have to do the same. But this time, it is just not Delhi's action alone. We now need to scale up action. So that scaling up of action where multi-jurisdiction, several other state governments are involved, all of them will have to take integrated action with and mobilization of the funds and resources. That's where the next level of challenge is. So we just hope that we will be able to therefore create the right template for that integrated regional planning and implementation.